Okay, I can share screen.
Yeah.
I can do whatever.
Do that all.
Well, let's. All
Feel pretty good.
right, cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
fine.
I'll be here.
You just keep bringing me candy.
I'll bring him candy. Nice seeing you guys.
Well, hi guys. My name is Jim White. I know one of you really good, and she's sitting in the room across from me. And I met one of you this morning in Chris Whitey's office. Other than that, I'm not sure I've had the pleasure of meeting with you, but I work out of the Brighton office. First of all, I'm not really tech savvy. I know enough to be dangerous, so you got to kind of bear with me, all right? Hopefully you understand. Now this is scheduled or set up, I guess, for 2 hours. I can't fathom we're going to take 2 hours. I don't talk that long, but I'm here for you if you got questions or however long you want to take. But this is not going to take 2 hours. So I would assume everybody on the call is working with. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. Typically, Kaylee Moody does this class. If you've been on it before, you've seen Kaylee do the class. She's phenomenal and does a great job, but she's down in, I don't know where the heck she is, Turks and Caicos or something, drinking margaritas on the beach. So I hope she gets sunburned. Not really, but good for her that she got away. So they asked me if I'd fill in. So here I am. I would assume all of you right now are kind of just getting started in your real estate career. Is that kind of true? If your mic's off, just kind of nod your head up and down or whatever you want to do. Well, that's good. So more than likely, you're starting off pretty much working with buyers. Does anybody have any buyers? I take that as a no. I haven't heard a yes. Did you have anybody you're working with? Alex, you're working with a buyer, aren't you?
Yes. Well, I have one. It's really slow. We've been looking for a while now.
Right, but you're working with a buyer.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've been through a buyer's consult with me. So you got to see a little bit of how that works. So I'll just give you a little intro about me. I've not been in real estate all that long. I got my license in 2017, October of 2017. Started with Howard Hanna. I shouldn't have said that. I should say I started with that company that has the green and yellow signs, but I was with them for about, oh boy, a month, for a minute maybe, and they taught us everything you could ever want to know about filling out paperwork or completing a contract or all those good things. But in 30 days, I'd never heard one thing about how you get a client or how you find a buyer or what you say to a buyer or what you say to a listing. So there was very little sales training. So I had met a couple girls that I took my licensing course with because I did it in person at the GRAR. And I was at a CE class and they were there and they said, boy, you should really come to work for Keller Williams. I said, well, have them give me a call. So I got a call and I met Jessica Woons and Anthony Butera here at the office. And they took me around and introduced me to everybody in the building. Invited me to the monthly sales meeting at the Brooklyn Country Club. And I was just amazed, how all the people were, just got along and were so friendly and so welcoming. And then I learned about the training programs and all the things that they do. So I said, that's where I need to be. Then I started as a single agent. I went through every single Ignite class there is. Of course, I say back then, sounds like ancient, but back in 2018, we did them all in this room right there where you're sitting, Alex. So I came to every Ignite class. Sometimes there'd be 10 people, sometimes there'd be 2 people, but I went through every one of them. And then I met some people, and I joined a team only because the reason I joined a team is not necessarily to generate business, but I need to be held accountable. So I come in every single day. I'm downstairs. I work on the Gen M team, and I'm here every day because I have to be around people. I can't work from home. So that's where I got my start. I have, so in 2018, I didn't sell a house. 2017, I didn't sell a house. 2018, I sold 20 houses. 2019, I sold 39, and I sold 44 last year. And my goal this year is to sell 65 homes. Right now, I have 25 closed or pending under contract. So it does take some time, but it certainly can be done. That's kind of sort of my background. Prior to that, I was in the corporate world, and I traveled extensively throughout North America and got tired of getting on a plane every week. So here I am. So when you're working with buyers, where are you guys finding your future buyers? Where are they coming from? Anybody?
Your database or people or referrals.
Gotcha. So your database, your sphere, or any of those people that would refer somebody. Yeah, that's the best way, because you're probably not going to get a whole lot of, at this point, you don't probably have the money to buy realtor.com leads or Zillow leads or any of those crazy things. So you really need to start with your people that right? So what I'd like to do is take a couple minutes. Is anybody open to doing some role playing? I'll be the agent, so you don't have to get nervous. You don't have to worry about it. You can be the buyer. How about you, Alicia?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so let's pretend that somehow you know me through your cousin's brother's mother. I don't know, something, and I'm going to call you up because I heard you might be interested in maybe buying a home. How's that?
Okay, sounds
Okay,
good.
ready?
Yeah.
All right, ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Alicia.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? This is Jim White with Keller Williams. Your cousin told me that you might be in the market to purchase a home. I'm just calling to see how I might be able to help.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I've been leasing for a few years now, and I'd like to have something to actually call my own, but I'm just not really sure where to get started.
Right, right. So you currently rent?
Yes.
Whereabouts?
Downtown on the Park Ave area.
Wow, great neighborhood.
Yeah, it's fun.
So since you rent, do you have a lease?
I do.
When is the lease up?
In August.
August.
Yes.
Okay, so we're almost to June. So can you sign a month to month after that, or do you have to sign a brand new lease?
My landlord, he's very flexible, so I think I would be able to sign a month to month.
Okay, so it's not like you either go somewhere else or you got to sign another year's lease.
Yeah, I have family in the neighborhood too, so if I would also be able to stay with my mom, or if
Perfect, perfect. Now, I would assume, because she gave me your name, you're not currently working with another agent, correct?
Oh, no.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, so let me ask you this. If you were to buy a house, not if, you're going to, because we're gonna find you a great house. But if you're
I
to
hope
buy a house, how would you pay for it? Would it be cash or would you have to get a mortgage?
I would have to get a mortgage, definitely. I hear that there are all different kinds of mortgage options. I'm kind of overwhelmed with figuring out which one will work for me.
Sure. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of mortgage options and a lot of lenders.
Mm,
And you want to partner with a lender that can help you the most for two reasons, based on their programs and based upon um, what they have to offer in terms of rates. Absolutely. Um, so if you bought a home, where would you like to be?
I would be okay with any of the suburbs around Rochester. I'm not too picky.
Gotcha. Okay.
Probably West Side,
West
Irondequoit,
side.
Greece.
Yep. Why does everybody think Irondequoit is west side?
Is it not?
I'm
Because it's
just
right
thinking
next.
out loud. I don't know. Everybody says that to me. I don't see where, and I never could understand why Greece was west side either. Greece is north side, isn't it?
I don't
I
know.
know it. I know it's called west side. I just
Well, I
fooling you.
I grew up in Greece, and Irondequoit is just literally right there. So I thought it was.
Yeah. No,
I might be
I'm
wrong.
I'm just picking on you. So you'd like to be in the suburbs?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So your time frame is as soon as you can find a house that kind of fits what you need.
Hmm.
Is it just yourself? If I can get personal?
No, it would be me and my boyfriend,
Gotcha. Okay. What's his name?
Mitchell.
Mitchell. Would you be buying a home together with Mitchell?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so he would be involved in the process and
Yes.
he'd be on a mortgage as well.
Hmm.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this. Would it make sense for you? I think you tell me if you would find some value in us getting together, for 45 minutes, an hour here at the office, so I can kind of take you through what it takes to buy a home in today's market.
Yeah, I would love that because I really don't even know where to start. So.
Right. Well, I'm here to help. And at that point, we can talk about, different mortgage options and things such as that. Get you set up on a search but I can really take you through what the process is to buy a home because a lot of people don't understand what it takes to buy a home in any market, but especially today's market, because as you've probably know and heard, it's highly competitive.
Yes, I
Um,
have heard that.
but like I tell every buyer I work with, somebody's got to buy that home. It might as well be you,
Yeah. Yep.
you know. So it can be done. People get nervous. They say, "Oh my God, I can't buy a home because it's too competitive, and I'll get outbid, and blah blah blah." Well, yeah, maybe, but we got to prioritize this and formulate a plan so that you win. And that's what I like to do. I like to sit down with you and just kind of take you through the process, and we can meet in person and go from there and really see if it's a good fit.
All right, that sounds good.
Sound good? How about which is best? Like days, evenings? I mean, what's your work schedule?
Evenings would be better.
All right. Tomorrow night, can we say like 6 p.m. at our office and you and Mitchell both?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And what I'll do is I'll shoot you over a text, our address here, Keller Williams in Brighton. Okay.
Sounds good.
So tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, and I look forward to meeting with you and we can get a game plan set up to get you home.
Great. Thank you.
Sound good? All righty. We'll see you tomorrow.
And
All right.
Steve,
How'd I do?
good.
Did I cover most everything?
Yeah. You asked a lot of questions of what would be important to me. So I think that's like the most important thing.
The key is a couple things. Is you want to find out the person's motivation, right? And a lot of these things I get to after we sit down and meet face to face, but I could have done more of it, over the phone. But you want to find out their motivation. Why do they want to buy a home? Well, I'm tired of renting. We want to upsize. We want to, something. Um, Then you want to find out their timeline and then work backwards. I didn't get too far into it with you, but you said your lease is up in August, right?
Yeah, I
So-
made that up. It's actually up in June, but yeah.
Well, but let's just say your lease is up the end of August. So work backwards 60 days. So you got August, you got July. So Alicia, you need to be under contract in a house by the 1st of July. Right? If it takes 60 days. So that means we got like, a month and a couple weeks to find a house.
Yeah,
It
probably
might
not
be,
realistic.
well, it's possible, but you got to meet me here tonight at 6 o'clock so we can get started, right? Yeah, but you want to try to work backwards and find out, when they need to be in the home. Now, in your case, you said, well, you could very well go month to month, so it's not the end of the world, but you like to kind of light a fire under the person to let them know how important it is that we get started. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions about that? Was that helpful at all? I don't know if any of you have done any scripting. I'm sure you may have or may not have. I know Alex has done a little bit. But the most important, I work with a lot of, I have Alex and a couple other mentees that I work with, and then I talk to a lot of other newer agents. And you really need to put a timeline together for when somebody needs or wants to buy a home. You got to narrow it down, and then you just got to get to their motivation. So in other words, if somebody says, oh, I really need to buy a home, I need to buy a home, I'm so excited, I want to buy a home, but I don't know if I want to buy a home right now. All right. So then you know what you could say. Let me ask you a question, Alicia. If you're not in your new home by Thanksgiving, how would that make you feel?
Like role playing still.
Yeah,
Stressed.
stressed, right?
Yeah.
So what if you're not in a new home by, the 1st of September?
A little anxious.
Right. So we need to get started.
Yeah.
That's why you want to use, I kind of throw in holidays depending on where you are in the year. You know what I mean? If you're not in a new house by Christmas, how would that make you and your boyfriend feel? Oh my God, we got to be in a house by Christmas because I want my Christmas tree up, blah, blah, blah. Right. So now you can work backwards with them to get them excited. But you try to keep that motivation going, and then when you're working with them, you got to say, look, let's go, because you want to be in that house by Easter, whatever the heck it is. So there's just a couple little tips you want to use. You don't want to try to stay too awfully long on the phone, just enough to get some vital information. Are they currently working with an agent? How are they going to pay for a house if they were to buy one? Have they been pre-qualified, not pre-qualified? But those are things you can do when you meet with them, or you can do that during that phone conversation as well, as you could set them up with 2 or 3 good lenders to talk to.
Do you meet with people before they have their pre-qual, or because I thought in my training class where I first got my license, they said you don't meet with buyers until they're pre-qualified.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What if you know them? I think what they meant by that is you probably wouldn't show them a house. Or
Okay.
you wouldn't meet a stranger unless
Yeah.
I've met with lots of people here at the office that did not necessarily have a pre-qual.
Okay. And then that would
Because
just be the
I'll tell you
next
what,
step.
no, because the misconception is, well, you don't want to work with that person because they don't have a pre-qual. Well, they might be qualified to buy a $500,000 house. You're right. So
Mhm.
you want to set them up with somebody. I wouldn't show a whole lot of homes to somebody unless they had a pre-qual.
Okay.
That's where I draw the line.
Yeah,
They
that
want to
makes
see homes. I want to see a pre-qual that says they're qualified to buy that home. Yeah, but I'll meet
Don't-
with anybody face to face and, take them through the process and help them get pre-qualified.
Don't you want a pre-approval though, instead of a qualification? Isn't it better to have pre-approval?
Not necessarily. I mean, a pre-approval is a long process, a longer process than a pre-qual. Okay. A pre-approval means they've already sent them all their 2 years worth of tax returns, pay stubs, all those things. Okay.
Right, they're looking at the
That's-
numbers.
Pardon me?
They're looking at the numbers. That's when they're actually looking at the numbers.
Right. A pre-qual, I mean, we work with lenders, premium mortgage, prime lending, GRB, where I get the buyer on the phone with one of those guys, whoever I feel would be a best fit for them. And they pre-qual them right over the phone. They send them their app, they put their information in the app, and we get a pre-qual. Now, pre-approval is a little more of a long, drawn-out process, yes, because they have to submit the paperwork to prove what they told them in the app or on the phone. So yeah, is a pre-approval better? Sure it is, but takes a bit longer to get it. Does that help?
Yeah, so Jim, I guess I'm just curious because it seems like in this market that I've just heard that more people need to come in with pre-approval, not pre-qual. So like, for example, I went with a friend who's going to be my mentor this past weekend to show a house. And one of the requirements, to even make an offer on the house was having a pre-approval letter. Have you found that's the case with a lot of listings, or are people still taking pre-quals?
I have never heard of such a thing. How's that? Now, you submit an offer on a house, you got to have a pre-qual attached to it. Yes. Not a pre-approval. No way. I've not seen it, but maybe there was one instance where that was the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm just telling you how it is. In this market, yeah, you got to have pre-qual to even write an offer. Sure. I'll tell you why. Because you don't want to waste your time, and you don't want to waste your buyer's time. And I tell them, look, I don't want to show you a house that you fall in love with and you can't buy. In other words, they might be thinking they want to buy a $250,000 house, and their pre-qual only goes to $200,000. So I want them pre-qual before I show them a house.
And then in this market too, are you finding that, say they're pre-qualified for 250, are you guys going in and really looking at houses that are like 175 and 200 because the offers are going so far over? I mean, some offers are going 100,000 over. So are you starting from the beginning, kind of talking to them about the market and that you're going to need to be looking lower?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I do during the buyer's consultation. Is I sit with them and I explain the market. And pretty much people like Alicia, for example, if I came back to you in a role play situation and I'll say, well, what would you feel comfortable with a mortgage payment? All right. So if you're currently paying $1,000 a month, I'm just making up numbers here. And you say, well, I want to keep my mortgage payment at $1,000 a month. Once you get going in this business, you'll quickly figure out in your head what $1,000 a month will buy that buyer. And they're probably at about, give or take, depending on where they look and how much the taxes are, they're probably at about $100,000 home. You can kind of ballpark that in your head. If they say, hey, I'll pay $1,500 a month. So in your mind, you're probably looking at $175,000 house, 180, depending on taxes.
And that's assuming that they're putting 20% down.
No,
Okay.
See, that's a whole misconception too. People think they have to put 20% down on a mortgage, and that's not true. Um, there's mortgages you can get as little as 3.5% down. That's FHA. People get VA loans. There's no down payment. USDA loans. There's no down payment. But the higher the down payment, the better their, the lower their mortgage payment's going to be. And if they put 20% down on a home, then they eliminate the PMI, or what's called private mortgage insurance.
Mm.
So again, I'm not a banker, so I try not to get too deep in the weeds over that stuff. That's why I have good relationships, and most agents do. You want to have a good relationship with a couple different lenders, so you know where to steer them.
I have one more question related to that. In one of the Ignite videos that I watched a couple of days ago, it was talking about, someone had mentioned how like a cash offer or a conventional loan offer would seem more attractive to a seller than like an FHA offer. But I'm just wondering why that would matter, because the seller is still getting the same amount of money and they're getting it all right away from whatever bank. So,
Very good question. So there's three separate things you just mentioned. First of all, cash, right?
mhm.
Cash is king. Cash, the reason cash is king is not by the way you might think cash is king. It's because in real estate, it means there's no bank involved, right? So in other words, you write a cash offer on a house, you have to show. Now, in this case, you don't show a pre-qual because they're not going through a bank, but you got to show what is called proof of funds. So a copy of their bank statement or retirement account or whatever it is, showing they have $200,000 or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
So, and then that's it. There's no appraisal on the house. In other words, there's no bank, so there's no appraisal. It's a quicker close. The seller doesn't have to worry about, God forbid, the buyer losing his job and then can't get the mortgage. So there's a big advantage to cash. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Cash will win every time. Conventional mortgage is just that. It's a little better interest rate typically than what you get on FHA mortgages, but the bigger difference is FHA it's backed by the federal government, so it's a government program. So the appraisers with FHA are a little tougher than what they are for conventional mortgages. So, and they're tougher in terms of repairs that would have to be made. If an FHA appraiser goes into a home and they see peeling paint or missing handrails going in the basement, various things, they'll flag that and make somebody fix it before they can move forward.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, when listing agents get multiple offers, or if they get two offers, let's just say there's two offers, and they're both identical, the same in terms of the dollars and everything else, and one's conventional and one's FHA, more than likely they're going to pick the conventional loan. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, I was just really confused about why the seller would care. I get why it's a difference to the buyer, but I didn't.
Well, the seller
makes sense.
cares, and the listing agent cares because they want to make sure the loan actually closes. So when the buyer says in the purchase offer, I'm going to close on or before, July 5th or whatever it is, everybody is making sure that happens. So that's why, what bank you're dealing with is important. The attorneys people deal with is important, and the agents are important. You learn, who can get the job done. But that's going to take you guys some time. I don't want to confuse you with all that. It really matters after some time. There's some really, really good agents out there. Trust me, there are. Excellent. And then there's some that are you know, who knows what. Does that make sense? I don't want to use any really bad words. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen here a little bit. Let's take you through this. You've probably all seen bits and pieces of this, I'm thinking. So this is the New York State disclosure or agency for buyers and sellers. It talks about a seller's agent, a broker's agent, which we're not going to talk about broker's agent today, and we're really not going to focus on seller's agent. What we're going to talk about is a buyer's agent, a dual agent, and a dual agent with designated sales agents. Now, you guys learned all this in your licensing class, correct? I take that as a yes. Okay. So this is the form, but I'm going to show it to you a little differently in a buyer's consult kind of presentation that I do, okay? But this is the form. You would fill this out. Your name would go up top where it says print name of licensee. You'd put that in there. And this would be Keller Williams, Greater Rochester. If you are working with a buyer as a buyer's agent, you would click this and you would click this one. Now, when you meet someone at a buyer's consult, you could fill this out and just let them know that you're going to talk about dual agency and dual agency with designated agents. And then you're going to click these boxes and they're going to sign it to make sure that way you've told them and they already have some kind of an awareness of what the difference is. Okay, now I'm not going to go into details on this form. I'm going to do it a little different way, if you don't mind. But I'll show you how to fill it out. So if it's just you're working with the buyer and you're doing a purchase offer and you're submitting an offer for the buyer, you would click this, then you would click buyer's agent, and then you would click buyers and you would type their name in here and then you'd have them sign it. Now, you're going to find more and more and more. This one is going to come up. Dual agent with designated sales agent. What that means is, and the reason I say it's going to come up more and more and more, there are so many more Keller Williams agents out there than there used to be. I show a lot of listings that are Keller Williams listings. So in that case, both the listing agent and the buyer's agent work with the broker. The broker is the key word here. So if you were showing a Keller Williams listing or writing an offer on a Keller Williams listing, you would, well, first of all, you would tell the buyer if they wanted to write an offer, just to let you know, this is dual agency with designated agents, just like I told you in our buyer's consult. They probably don't remember. So the listing agent works for the seller in this case, and I work for you, but it's all under the umbrella of the same broker, Keller Williams, Greater Rochester. So you would click that box if you were writing a purchase offer. And in here, you would type your name, you're representing the buyer, and then, you know, Alex Gurney is representing the seller. She's a listing agent. Put that in here, and then you would have your buyer sign it. Did I confuse you? Hopefully I did not. Now, I'll confuse you one more time. This box, and I can't fathom right in the near future this is going to happen for you guys, but if you had your own listing and you also brought the buyer to your own listing, then you would be a dual agent. You're representing both the buyer and the seller in this transaction. Now, you should absolutely let that buyer know that you first represent the seller. So some people won't do dual agency at all. They'll refer the buyer to another agent. You're still going to get paid. You get a referral fee, but it's not necessarily about getting paid. It's doing the right thing. So you ask the buyer, do you want me to refer you to someone else, because I'm going to represent both parties in this, and you may not feel comfortable. If they do feel comfortable, then you go ahead. If not, some agents won't do it at all. They just refer them. But it can be done. It's just you got to let them know in advance that you are a dual agent. Make sense? Now, this is the New York State Housing and Anti-Discrimination Disclosure Form. Basically says that this form was provided to me by, and that would be your name, and this would be Keller Williams Greater Rochester. Your buyer and or seller their name would go here. They would sign it here. It's basically to say that we do not discriminate at all, and we follow all, fair housing policies and practices. But we also let them know that they cannot discriminate as well. So it's both sides. It's the buyer, it's the seller, the buyer, and the real estate agencies on both sides have to sign this. You'll see in a lot of listings, this will be in the listing signed by the seller as well. Has to be there. Questions? Let's see. Okay, now, I don't go through all this, but there's just parts of this is my buyer's presentation. When this was originally put together, it was pretty fancy stuff, which, so this is kind of where I start, but I don't go into great detail, but I talk about why it's important to buy a home, and you build wealth through home ownership. The simplest way to say it is you're renting. Why do you want to pay somebody else's mortgage? You might as well pay your own mortgage, and take advantage of really building wealth. But then I start, and this is when I'm, face to face at the table at that buyer's consult we talked about, Alicia. I want to see what they're really looking for in a home. Okay. And this is where I take notes. Some people have kind of a wish list they give buyers and they have them write it out. I just take notes and I have conversations, but I want to find out what kind of home that they're looking for. Are schools important? Do they have kids? Is there certain schools, they're in now and they have to stay in them because they love the school district? Okay, so if they're in Pittsford, we know we kind of got to stay in Pittsford. If they have smaller kids, so I lay it out to them of where do you want to be and what does that home look like? I got to have 3 bedrooms. I got to have at least 2 bathrooms. I'd like to have, a 2-car garage, whatever it is. That's what you want to find out. Then again, we're going to talk a little bit about that monthly payment. What are you looking to have in a monthly payment? If they say I only want to spend $1,000 a month, and that's fine, but then kind of sort of where you got to look. You don't want to be looking at homes in, Penfield, Fairport, Pittsford, or Brighton, because you're just not going to find it. Then again, what's your time frame? When do you need to buy a house? And again, always work backwards, because it takes on or about 60 days. You can close sooner, 45. If it's a cash deal, you can close in 30 days. But for the most part, it takes about 60 days to close on a home. So again, you always want to work backwards. I got to be in a home by Labor Day. I don't know. Okay, so then just go work backwards 60 days. Okay, you need to be under contract by the 1st of July. And then what kind of loan is right for me? It's really not for you to decide what loan is right for them, but you can kind of help lead them in the right direction. If Alicia, if Mitchell tells me he's a veteran, well, then maybe we should be looking at somebody that has really good VA loans. Somebody might say to me, because people ask me all the time, other agents, I really don't have a lot of money set aside. I have good credit and all those things, but I don't have enough money to buy a home. And I flat out ask them, how much do you have? And I say it, I don't mean to get personal, but how much do you have set aside in your savings account? Oh, I have, $5,000. Well, $5,000 is probably not enough to buy a home today with closing costs and down payment. So I might steer that person to somebody that I know has, the Home Buyer Dream Club. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a program that some local banks have that give first-time home buyers money for closing costs and down payment, some money. So I might lead them in that direction, but you got to find out what it is they might need before you start leading them in the right direction. Those are things that'll take time. I'll give you a perfect example. Happened to me yesterday. There's a guy on our team, Alex, you've met him, Mike Doty. His wife had a baby the other day, so he's kind of out of commission. So he asked me to show a home for him last night and meet these buyers in Irondequoit at a house. And so I met him, and he's been showing them homes for quite a while, but he can't convince them to write an offer for more than what the list price is. They don't get it, right? So sometimes it takes another voice, than just him just telling them, because they're hearing it all the time. So I met him, nice people, showed him the home. And I said, look, this has delayed negotiations. The house is 220. And I said, I wouldn't doubt it sells for 250. The husband says, oh, I'd pay 250 right now for this house. I said, oh, that's great. I said, if I can get personal, do you have a pre-qual, or who are you working with as a bank? Because I didn't have that information, and Mike had it. And she says, oh, well, I've been talking to Citizens Bank. And I'm like, oh boy, that's probably where we need to stop. Nothing wrong with Citizens Bank, don't get me wrong, great bank. But yeah, if you're going to write an offer and there's multiple offers, probably the one that wins is not going to be, Citizens Bank. I didn't tell you that. Hopefully they're not recording this call. But the husband says, well, we have $175,000 set aside in the bank. I said, oh, great. So I immediately thought, because I had just had lunch 2 weeks ago with a guy from Premium Mortgage, Gage Bush, who presented to us their new program. It's called a cash offer program. So you got to have really good credit. You got to be in that conventional loan mode. You got to have about a 20% earnest money deposit to even qualify. Now, if you have all those things, they will write a letter up that basically says you're a cash buyer. So today, Mike Doty, who is wife's attorney, he wrote an offer. I don't know if he got it accepted or not. I think they're reviewing tonight. but he wrote an offer for $250,000 cash. So, and that's what I mean by you got to take time to learn the different programs and meet with different people and ask the right questions to figure out what it is people might need. So that's just a little story from today that happened. Now, this is what I use to take a buyer through what I call the buying process. Alex, you've seen me do this once. So we start out, because I look at them and I say, most people don't know what it takes to buy a home. Alicia, you just told me I have no idea where to start. And I don't know if you truly meant that. You probably know where to start, but that's what you said in the role play. You don't know where to start. So this is why something like this is, to me, it works, because I'm a picture person. So I got to have pictures and something I can relate to. Now, most everybody can relate to a baseball diamond, I think. So I start out and I asked them, I flat out asked them, you're familiar with baseball, right? Oh, God, yeah, of course. Okay. Well, I say, look, we're right here. We're between home and first. We're going to start the home search. Now, that could take a day. That could take 6 months. It just depends. Depends on you, and it depends on the market, and it just depends on how long it takes us to find you the right home. And I always say, find you the right home, because I don't want people to think that I'm selling them. I don't sell anybody anything. I want them to find a home that they're most comfortable with, that they love, and then everybody's happy. So we're right here. We're going to start the home search. We're going to write an offer on a house. And if we get the offer accepted, you got the first space. Now, within that offer, there's some stuff. There's an earnest money deposit. That doesn't mean we give them the deposit when we write the offer, but we got to give them that deposit within 2 days of the offer being accepted. Now, people say, okay, how much is that earnest money deposit got to be? Well, when I first started in real estate, up until like a year ago, maybe, or even 2 years ago, a year ago, it used to be the standard was a minimum of 1% of whatever the offer price was. So, simple math, if it's a $200,000 house, you've got to be at least $2,000 for the deposit. Now, because of the market being so competitive and multiple offers, you got to make your offer stand out. So however much you can put as an earnest money deposit, the better. So if they have, $10,000 sitting in a bank account that they're going to use for closing costs, I recommend they give that as an earnest money deposit, because it makes your buyer stand out to the seller, tells the seller this person is serious, and he or she's got some money. That's just my best advice. That's what I tell buyers when I write offers, and it helps. And everybody's doing it. So you got to make this, long ago, they used to give a $500 and $1,000 deposit. Those days are over. But you got to have an earnest money deposit. Also, in the state of New York, a contract is not a contract until you have attorney approval. So, and now our current contracts, we put in there 3-day attorney approval. So, and I try to explain to the buyer, I also explain to sellers when I'm working with them, but to buyers, I say, look, if we get the offer accepted, and it has happened, you change your mind, or maybe you see another house you like better that we could get an offer, it's happened. All we got to do is tell that attorney, don't approve this contract, because they changed their mind that they don't want to buy the house. So you do have 3 days. That's for attorney approval. Now, and that is in that purchase offer. It's written in there that there's 3 days for the attorney to approve. Also in the purchase offer is, the elephant in the room, which has become this one, is a home inspection. Some buyers, a lot of buyers think they have to have a home inspection. That is not true. Now, I never tell anyone not to do a home inspection. But most offers today, home inspections are waived, in a multiple offer situation. And the only reason I say, when you look at the house and you look at the property condition disclosure, and you know that the roof is 2 years old, and the furnace is from 2019, and the home looks to be in really, really good condition, there's a possibility people will waive the home inspection. That's all I'm going to say about that. If they want to have a home inspection, that's fine. That's written in as a contingency. And that's done after we have the offer accepted and after there's attorney approval. Because I never want a buyer to pay for a home inspection until we have attorney approval, because if somebody backs out, he or she is out their money on a home inspection. So we don't want that to happen. So we schedule the home inspection. I usually do it within 5 days. We have the home inspection, and at that point, we have a couple days to review the inspection and determine if there's anything we want the seller to fix or repair. I tell buyers, one of 3 things can happen. They'll either come back and say, we're not fixing anything. And at that point, you can walk away. They might say, well, we'll fix this, and this, but we won't fix that and that. And then you decide if you want to agree to that. If you don't, you'll walk away. Or the seller might say, hey, I'm not going to fix anything, but I'll give you, $1,000 at closing, for repairs. And then you fix it yourself. So those are kind of 3 options you have. Or there might not be anything you ask for and see you later, but that's a contingency in this purchase offer. This contract is contingent on this home inspection. Once you do it and you negotiate everything and you're done, then you release that contingency. There's a contingency release you sign. At that point, you are on second base. At this point, you are actually going to start the loan process. Okay, this is where you're going to give them all that documentation they need to prove what you told them is actually true. It's also the point where the bank is going to order the appraisal. Okay, the appraisal costs the buyer, it's about $450, somewhere in there, depends on the bank. And the buyer has to pay for that, before they do the appraisal. I got to plug in here. So that's got to be paid for, and then the bank orders the appraisal. Do you guys know the difference between an appraisal and an assessment? Anybody? Say what?
Okay, can I tell you my answer?
You can tell me your answer.
Okay. So a tax assessment is for tax purposes, but the appraisal is to make sure the house is actually worth whatever the buyer's trying to buy it.
Kind of. It's really, they'll tell you it's for the buyer's benefit. It's really for the bank's benefit. Because the bank wants to know that house is worth what they're loaning you. So that's important. So then you're really going through the loan process here. Once the appraisal comes back, and that's good, and all your docs are in, the bank is going to release the mortgage contingency. This purchase offer is contingent on you getting a mortgage. If for some reason you can't get the mortgage, then you don't have to buy that house. You get your earnest money deposit back. You get to this point, and they've released the mortgage contingency. They've given you mortgage commitment. You can almost start packing right here. But if you change your mind and don't want to buy that house, you could, I say could, lose that deposit. So it's very important that you are absolutely sure of what you're doing, and you're going to help them along the way, obviously. Right here is where the attorney starts going to work. They want to make sure you have clear title to the house, that nobody's cousins, brothers, grandmothers, doesn't still have their name on the title of that house, or there's no tax liens on the house, anything. Because when you close on a home, you have to have clear title, meaning it's all yours, nobody else. Once this is done, they issue what is called a clear to close. And that has to be, by law, 3 days prior to closing. Okay, they send out what's called a closing disclosure to the buyer. At that point, the attorneys in the bank will schedule the closing, and that's when you do, or what I do anyway, I like to do it, the night before or morning of, depending on when the closing is. We do what's called a final walkthrough, where we go back and we go through the house and we make sure, all the appliances are working, there's no leaks, all the windows are still there. Because once you close on the house, it's your problem. You can't go back and say, hey, the refrigerator's gone or whatever it might be. So that's why I like to do it, night before or day of. I've had some buyers say to me, well, can't we do it, today? I know we're not closing till Saturday. No, we don't want to do that because something could happen in between that time and you wouldn't know about it. After that, you're at home, you close, they give you the keys, you sign a bunch of papers, and it's yours. Now, I explained to buyers that from here, from first to here, could take as much as 60 days. That's why we talk 60 days. Could be a little sooner, could be a little longer. It just depends. Any questions? Did I confuse you? You sure?
When you say that it could take up to 60 days, what part of that process takes the longest?
Because
that just seems like a very long time. Like, I haven't sold a house. I'm very, I just signed.
okay.
But...
Well, let's assume I just wrote 2 offers today, and the guy's getting a mortgage. He's not doing a home inspection on either one of them. I know the bank, GRB, Genesee Regional Bank. I deal with one person over there. I know they're on top of it. I know this buyer is on top of getting documents in. So I set a closing date of like 40 days. Takes time to get the appraisal done, attorneys, sometimes the biggest drawback is the bank and the attorneys getting together to, because they're busy. So, it could take 60 days. Yes. It could take 75 days. I would never write that in a contract unless a seller wanted 75 days, because that's the new thing too that we're finding with purchase offers. Is the biggest question you got to ask the listing agent. The first question I ask when I'm writing an offer, I call the agent or I text him or her and I say, does your seller need any particular closing date? You've got to ask that question. You can't assume that, hey, I'm going to close in 45 days or I can close in 30 days. That might not work for the seller. And a lot of times what we're finding is sellers need what is called post-possession. They want to close, but they need to stay in their house for another month because they're building a house, or the house they're buying they can't close on for another month after, and they're going to be homeless. So that they sometimes need what is called post-possession. Typically, if the buyer agrees to giving them, basically what you're doing is you're closing on the home and you're letting the seller live there. You know, typically you'd charge them a daily rate for like rent. But the new thing is anymore to get an offer accepted, if they need post-possession, you let them stay there for free. I've written 3 offers in the last month. A couple of them I've got accepted where the buyer gave possession for 60 days for nothing, for free. They could stay there. But that's not always the case. But I went kind of round and about. Did I answer your question? 60 days it's kind of the standard number everybody uses. You know, can it be done sooner? Yeah, if the bank does everything they're supposed to do, the attorneys are on top of everything. Yeah, you can do it. Sometimes you got to force them. I just wrote an offer where I said we'd have mortgage commitment in 27 days. If we get the offer accepted, I got to call up the lender and say, better get to work because we got to have this done, you know, and they will, for sure. Questions? Now, at that point, once I go through that little presentation I have, if I can go back a little bit further, that's the buying process. Then I can talk a little bit, some of this is outdated because nobody asks for seller concessions anymore. Although, do you know how that works? I will explain it. Seller concessions, and you can get it occasionally if you find the right house. Remember that buyer we talked about that only had, I made it up, only had $3,000? Or they only had $5,000 and there was no way they could get like a gift from a relative. So there's a possibility you can ask for what is called seller concessions. Okay, so just to keep the math simple, if the house was $100,000, we'll say, and these buyers are getting an FHA mortgage, that you can ask for up to 6% seller concessions, meaning the seller will give you $6,000 at closing. Now, how do you make that happen? Well, if the house is $100,000, you write an offer for $106,000 and you ask for $6,000 in seller concessions. So the seller gets their price and the buyer gets the house with $6,000 at closing, but they have their mortgage is going to be for $106,000. The other way you can do it is you write an offer for $100,000 and ask for 6% seller concessions, and basically the seller is only netting $94,000. So they're not getting their price, but you know, if you can find a house that's been on the market for a while that doesn't have any offers, there are some out there, you know, you could write an offer and get your buyer seller concessions. It could happen. If for a conventional mortgage, they can only get a maximum of 3% seller concessions. So, you know, if you got a buyer that really needs to buy a house and they're just low on cash, you can't get them in the home buyer dream club or whatever it might be. They can't get a gift from anybody. You might have to find them a house that maybe needs some work, you know, that, you know, they could probably get seller concessions. I'm not going to talk about these two things. You guys all know what an escalation clause is? Anybody? All right, I'll just explain it anyway. I'll assume you don't know. Escalation clause, I just wrote 2 of them today. Whenever there's a multiple offer situation, so if a house is $200,000, that's the list price. And the buyer says, I love that house. I gotta have that house. And they're pre-qualified up to 250, we'll say. And they have to have it, and they would spend up to 250. So you write the purchase offer for $200,000, and then you write in an escalation clause that says, you know, we will beat any offer by X amount, whatever amount you want to put in there, $1,000, $2,000. I sometimes write weird things like 1,027, you know, because everybody else writes in even numbers. But we'll beat any offer by $1,000 up to whatever your buyer tells you is their max. So if it's 250, you're at up to $250,000. And how that works is if the next best offer is up to 240, we'll say, then your buyer would buy it for $241,000. That's how an escalation clause works. You know, it's such a challenge. The market's a challenge, and you just got to be creative in the way you write offers, and you got to explain ahead of time to buyers, you know, what the market is, what the market is doing, and so that they're prepared. And so, you know, you're not throwing curveballs at them when they see a house they love, and then you say, well, you got to write an escalation clause. I don't know if Christina is on this call. Christina's I'm mentoring Christina, but she wrote 2 offers yesterday for a buyer, younger couple, first-time home buyers. So they're looking in Greece, and both listings were like 119,000. Multiple offer situation, and all they would write is $119,000. I even helped her try to explain to them that that's not going to happen, but we're gonna do whatever you want us to do because we work for you. She wrote the offer. Actually, one they wanted to write for $1,000 less. I said, write it up if that's what it takes, because sometimes you have to get the buyer sometimes has to lose to figure it out what it's going to take. One offer had 39, one listing had 39 offers, and it sold for, I don't know, 165, and the other one was very similar to it. So I said to her, I said, you know, it's too bad you didn't get it, you know, I feel bad, but now you got some good ammunition to go back to them to say, look, this is the situation, you know, if all you want to pay is $120,000 and that's the max, then we should be looking at houses that are, you know, no more than 100. So hopefully they figure it out. But that's back here, that's what an escalation clause is. And if you ever need any help with it, just let me know. Now, this is where I talk about agency. Okay, and I explained the listing agent is hired by the seller and has a fiduciary obligation to get their home sold for the best price and the best terms. Okay. And I keep saying that the seller is hired, or the listing agent is hired by the seller. Now, the buyer's agent, and I look right at him and I say, that's what I am in this situation, is hired by the buyer to have their own representation when negotiating price terms against the listing agent. The buyer's agent job is to get the buyer the home they want for the best possible price terms, best possible terms and price. So, and I reiterate, the listing agent works for the seller and the buyer's agent works for you. But I go back to this word hired, okay? Because there are people out there that buyers, new buyers, think that they have to pay you. And I just keep drilling it to these buyers. You don't pay me anything. Nobody pays me anything. They pay the broker, but you don't pay the broker or anybody. This person right here pays. That's the seller. And I've had buyers look at me, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's great. I thought I had to pay you. No, I work for you, but you don't pay me anything. Then I talk about dual agency, and I talk about the differences in just straight up dual agency and dual agency with designated agents, meaning I could very well show you lots of homes that are Keller Williams listings. They're owned by the broker. The listing agent represents the seller and I represent you. If you don't feel comfortable with any of that, then we can go to plan B. I've never had anybody ever say no. And then there's straight up dual agency where it could, I'm on a team, so it's a little tough because I'm on the Jenna May team. So Jenna could have a listing. It's not my listing, but since I'm on the team, if I was to show the home, then we would be actual dual agents. Because in that case, I represent both the buyer and the seller. That's kind of confusing, I know, but that's how that works. Now, that's my process I go through. And then I start the process of setting them up on a search. So we do it right in the office. I set them up and we talk about where they want to be, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, kind of a price point of where they would feel comfortable in terms of not the mortgage payment, but the dollars. And then we start setting up the search. But at that point is when, and I had it on my screen somewhere. Now I got to find it. Bear with me, guys. That's when I bring this up. Now, I know of some agents that before they do anything, they bring this out and go through it with them. But when I'm all done with my buyer's presentation and I don't finish it, but when I start setting up their multiple listing search is when I bring this up. And I look them straight in the eye and I say, do you feel comfortable with me? And I have never, ever, ever, maybe they're too embarrassed. I don't know. I've never had anybody tell me, no, I don't feel comfortable with you. Most times they're like, of course, this is great. I said, okay, well, this is a buyer agency agreement. This puts me to work for you. And I go through the agreement. I don't necessarily go through fine line because it's really kind of legal stuff, but I fill it out. I already have it filled out beforehand. So I put their name in there, Keller Williams, Greater Rochester. My name goes here. They're buying, in most cases, a residential property which I put in there. Buyer's obligations are basically saying they're going to work with me exclusively to represent them in the purchase of a new home. I go down here to term of agency. So if the meeting was today, I'd put today's date in there. I typically always make these for 1 year. You know, and I always tell them, look, we're going to find you a home before a year, but I just always put a year in there. If they don't feel comfortable with a year, then we negotiate it. I'll put 6 months, but I've never had anybody not sign this after I put a year in there. This box is pretty standard. Typically you put 14 days. And what this means is, let's say we put 6 months in here. So it's from today until, I don't know, whatever 6 months is from today, you know, and then they don't sign a new agreement with you. And a few days later, they go back and look at a home that you saw 2 weeks ago, and they put an offer on it with some other agent. Well, they owe the broker 3%. Not you, they owe the broker. That's where this comes into play. You check this, 3%. And basically what that means is, you know, and the way I try to phrase it to them is, you know, and the reason for this is you're hiring me to work for you to find you a home, but, you know, could very well be you wind up, you know, your cousin's brother became a real estate agent last week and got his license. You know, if you decide that you wanted to write an offer with him, you know, then you could be held accountable for 3% to the broker. Again, it's all about the broker. It's not me. It has nothing to do with me getting paid. It's the broker. But that's what that transaction fee is right there. The only thing you check, and then you have them sign it. Signed by them. The broker is Keller Williams Greater Rochester, and then you sign this piece right here. But once
Then I just want you to know that we can't see your screen. So if you're showing us
sorry, I
the
wasn't
form-
sharing it.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think we all understand what you're.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
What the heck did I do? Ah, can you see it now?
Yeah,
Oh my God, why didn't you say something?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, that's a buyer agency agreement right there.
You're the best.
I was sharing it the whole other time. Not that form.
He's the best.
Yeah, Jeremy, I'm out of candy, man.
Here, I'll get you another
What's the
piece.
deal? Yeah.
I got you, Jim.
Anyway, this is a buyer agency agreement, all the things I just talked about. Has anybody ever filled one of these out before? I take that as a no. I will tell you, I would not bypass this. Whether you know the person well or you don't, or it's somebody off the street. Thanks, buddy.
You got it.
You're all right. I would have them sign a buyer's agency agreement, anybody you're working with.
Water? Sure. Do you want more candy?
Because you're gonna work hard and you're gonna show lots of houses and your phone's gonna be ringing and people are gonna be texting you and, you know, you wanna make sure you're taken care of. You know, and this form, you know, does that. Now, is it a legal? Have people signed a buyer agency agreement and then work with someone else? Sure. But it makes them feel obligated to you. You know, and you explain to them, look, at any time, if I'm not working hard for you and I'm not doing the right things and I'm not available, we're going to rip this up and you go work with someone else. But you got to prove to them that you're going to do those things. You know, on the other side of the coin, you might be working with a buyer that is just downright ordinary, just crazy. You might get to a point where you just can't work with that buyer anymore. And you might want to sit down with them, and yeah, it happens. We occasionally will fire a buyer. But this locks you in, you know, and you want to make sure you get this signed. And honestly, if I can sit in front of someone in this building or at a Starbucks or whatever it is and go through that buyer's presentation and make them feel like, number one, they can trust me. And number two, there's a bold law out on the wall somewhere. It says, come from contribution. You always want to be coming from contribution, meaning you want to keep adding value. You want to keep giving them information that's useful, you know, talking about the market. That's coming from setting them up with the right lender, answering their questions. You want to come from contribution. If you do those things, people will work with you forever, and they will refer you to everybody they know. It works, but you got to sit in front of them. Anybody that wants to talk about real estate, I would get them in here. And if you need help with that, call me, whatever, I'll help you. I'm here most of the time anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, if you have a problem, please reach out to me, and I'd love to help you out. But what you got to do is get on your phone and call everybody you know. And the key is, what are you going to ask them? Well, you're gonna call everybody you know, and you're gonna say, who do you know that's interested in buying or selling a home this year? Don't ask them if they're interested in buying or selling a home, because they're probably not. You want to know who they know. Everybody knows somebody that's thinking about making a move. Or they might just say, hey, I am. You know, but that's how you build your business. That's the best way. And then the other things that I always talk about, you know, is, I don't know, maybe you guys are, but if I were you guys, I'd be all over our Facebook page saying, hey, who's got an open house they want held this weekend? I'm free. That's where you need to start. You know, hey, who needs somebody to show a home? Alex, how many homes have you showed in the last 2 months? Probably more than me. Yeah. I told Alex this from day one. I said, you need to get on there and show houses. I mean, she's showing houses for everybody, you know, making a couple bucks, but she's learning something too, you know, and she's meeting other agents, which is most important. The other thing I'll say about Alex, she shows up. She's in the building. That's important. And I know you guys are home or whatever, and that's okay, but you really need to show up. You need to come in as much as you can, and just, you can sit here and call people, but you get to meet other people, and people get to know you. It goes a long way, as I'm telling you, if you can do it. I'll be glad when they have these Ignite classes in person again. I mean, I think it, you know, and this Zoom's okay, and it's what we've had to do. I get it. But I think as we go along here, I think we're going to see more in-person things. I think that's great. Plus, you guys get to meet each other. You know, you see each other on a Zoom call or something, but, you know, come in and talk. Because you might come in here and I'm just thinking, you know, Alicia, for example, you might come in here and be sitting, and you'll see Alex, and you might say, oh, geez, Alex, how's it going? And Alex might say, I'm having a really good problem with that buyer I have. I don't know. And then you guys talk it out, you know, and you come up with kind of a game plan. You know, it's called a mastermind. So that's my advice. Any questions? Guess not. Was this helpful?
Hey, Jim, is it okay if I piggyback and say one thing real quick?
You can say
Everybody?
anything you want.
Awesome. I was gonna give you guys a call. I called a bunch of the newer agents. Jim, you're phenomenal first and foremost, as always. I was listening. I had it on mute over here. See you, Kim. Have a good. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So Kim's leaving right now, but tomorrow Kim has an awesome new agent check-in here in Brighton from 2 to 3. It'll be in person. So for you guys, if you're able to make it, come on in. It's a great way to meet each other in person. And if you have any, questions or concerns, or just want to say hi, even, come in and it'll be great. And then,
Yeah.
and right after Kim's is Chris, the technology director here, Chris Whitus, has her create a listing and transaction desk class from 3 to 4. That'll also be right here in person. There will be a Zoom link for that as well for anybody who's not able to make that in person, but it's awesome if you guys are able to make both. That'd be great. I'll personally be in the West office tomorrow, so I'll miss seeing you guys.
Oh,
but-
Jeremy.
I know, right? But it should be a great time. Just wanted to say that.
Hey, Jeremy,
Hey,
most important question.
sure.
Will there be food at this function?
Oh my gosh, Jim and I remember before all this COVID stuff, there would always be food. Like the sponsors and stuff would bring in sub trays and
Oh, God,
amazing
pizza.
food. Jim and I miss that.
Oh,
Hopefully, Jim, hopefully soon. Hopefully pretty
I
soon there
hope.
will be food again.
oh. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All right,
Nice seeing you guys.
thank you so much. It was really good meeting you.
If you need anything, I'll give you my number, 585. Write it down. 585-503. I got my mouth full of candy. I apologize. 503-4654.
46. Yeah, Jeremy called me yesterday to just remind me about this class, and he was telling me that you're known as the Candyman around the office.
That's what he called me. Oh,
Yeah, so I've noticed that during this class.
oh, well,
Yeah, but thank you so much.
could be worse. I could be like drinking a beer or something,
Yeah, that's true. It's true. All right,
All
have a
right, you're
good one.
welcome. Good luck to you. Yeah, if you need anything, you just let me know, okay?
All right, thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.